Hello and welcome to a new episode of the Cradle News Roundup, your one-stop shop for all news West Asia. My name is Esteban Carrillo. I am the head of news for the Cradle. As usual, I'm joined by my colleagues, content creator and writer for the Cradle, Karim Shami, and content creator and social media manager for the Cradle, Sima Itayim. And before we start, please, we want to remind you to like, to share, to subscribe, to follow us on our social media channels, and especially to visit our Patreon page where you can become a supporter for the Cradle to help us continue to do the work that we do.
Before we start, I just wanted to address everyone in the comments who have concerns asking where Sharmeen is and if she's okay. Don't worry, she's totally fine. She's totally safe. She's just been super busy and she's going to be back on the show very soon. So until then, you guys are just going to have to put up with me.
Today we have a very meaty story to begin with, and that is the kidnapping of a Lebanese citizen from a beach house in the north of Lebanon by the Israeli army. You know, something absolutely unprecedented that happened a few days ago, last Saturday or last Friday, if I'm not mistaken. I believe it happened on Friday, and then the information didn't actually get out until Saturday. What you had was about 25 Israeli commandos staging a landing operation in the beach of Batroun. Now, for reference, the beach town of Batroun is just a few minutes south of Tripoli, so essentially in the north of Lebanon, and a Christian Maronite area that is somewhat of a safe zone, right? Has been somewhat of a safe zone over the past year or so of war, and particularly over the past month. The Israeli commandos land. They take this man, Aymaram has a civilian sea captain. They take him back into sea. And to this day, the Lebanese state hasn't really said much about this, besides some comments from the Interior Ministry saying that they are investigating, that the security forces are investigating. The army as well has kept completely mum. Unifil, which has the mandate to help the Lebanese state protect its borders, protect its territorial integrity, also completely mum. So what else do we know about this absurd, really, operation that hit Lebanon a few days ago?
Well, first of all, for context, again, you mentioned it's a Maronite Christian area. Politically, I mean, there's no Hezbollah presence there. It's 30 kilometers north of the capital, Beirut, and 140 kilometers away from the southern Lebanese border. Now, the Israeli army radio claimed that the Shayetet 13 force carried out a special operation with Unit 504 of the Amman Intelligence Division. I think between 15 and 25 officers infiltrating through the sea. And they claim, of course, that they arrested a Hezbollah member who is a source of knowledge and has intel on, the maritime field and domain when it comes to Hezbollah. But as you mentioned, he seems to be a naval captain. His parents have come out and said that, he has nothing to do with Hezbollah. Anyway, so the thing is, it raised a lot of questions in Lebanon. How were they able to infiltrate with the presence of the Unifil patrols, especially the German Navy specifically, and the entry of military boats? Because the entry of military boats into Lebanese waters usually requires permission and coordination. So how did the Israeli boats enter? Were they just, asleep? I mean, but so this is... I wanted to also say that in war, things like this happen. So it's not really the landing operation itself that is shocking. It's the fact that there has been, first of all, no one was there to stop it, and they allowed it to happen, obviously. And second of all, there's been no condemnation officially by the Lebanese state or anyone. So these things do happen in war. We may see more of them. And there was it sparked outrage and a whole mix of reactions. This is the government that you want... this is the government and army and etc. that you want Hezbollah to hand its weapons over to. This is who you think is going to protect Lebanon. So there was a lot of that talk. And there was also I saw videos of Christians from Batroun who filmed themselves saying, you know what, maybe Hezbollah should come protect us here because there's no one to protect us. So really, we don't know how they were able to infiltrate. And there was a lot of speculation around it. People saying all kinds of things. Yes, he's Hezbollah. No, he's not Hezbollah. He's a naval captain. He's an Israeli spy and the Israelis came to rescue him. All kinds of talk. But as usual in Lebanon, we have to wait for the investigations. And we most probably won't find out exactly what happened because in Lebanon, we never do. But so this is kind of a statement, in a way that we can come anytime we want, wherever we want, and do whatever we want. It was obviously allowed to happen. And just because these things happen in war doesn't mean it's acceptable. This is like a state of open war. When you see that there's nobody there to condemn it, I mean, that's the alarming part, not the operation itself.
This operation shows how weak our government is and our army is, because nobody knew what happened. They didn't even suspect anything. And of course, this shows the role of Unifil. The army and the government didn't know what happened. What happened is that his wife complained that she didn't see him, and she filed a complaint with her husband to the police. And then after investigation and looking into CCTV of neighboring buildings where he were, they saw that there were a group of people escorting him out of a house. And then they started to conclude that he might be kidnapped, or this might be a force. And later on, or the next day, the Israelis revealed that they did an operation in Baton in Lebanon. That's when the Lebanese government and army knew what happened. And I mentioned Unifil. Why I mentioned Unifil? Because Unifil, since 2006, they are the ones responsible of the maritime security of Lebanon. Yani, if there was a breach from the Israelis, Unifil should report to the army. That's why they are there. And if Israel made a breach, an air breach or a ground breach, they have to report it back. That's their sole purpose in Lebanon. And they did it. And specifically, the Germans are the ones who are responsible for the maritime security of Lebanon. So this also raises the question, did the Germans and Unifil and Israel cooperate to do this operation? And if they did, so we knew about this operation because of the man's wife. What if Israel did other things previously in Lebanon? We didn't know. Maybe there was a single guy who was kidnapped or killed, and because he's like maybe part of Hezbollah or he have a sensitive position in Lebanon, nobody knew. So this raises a lot of questions. First, this shows us how, as I said, this shows us how weak Lebanon is. We don't know what's happening in our borders. We don't know what's happening on our sea, and of course, we have no idea what's happening in our skies. And that is the purpose of Hezbollah. That's why Hezbollah was created or was found in 1982 following the Israeli invasion.
Exactly. I mean, Hezbollah obviously fills a role that in Lebanon is completely lacking. And I think operations such as this that you're saying, Karim, really put this on display. Now, about the role of the German Navy, Unifil, from what I've seen, at sea, they have deployed German, Turkish, Greek, and French ships that are, Unifil, as they are often described as peacekeepers, right? UN troops are there to keep the peace, so to speak. They are there as a buffer, I guess, right? Since, as you explained, Karim. But, the questions about the German Navy's involvement in this operation are also stem, well, from the first media reports. Among the first to report on this happening was Al-Mahata, a publication, a sister publication of in a way of the Cradle. And they were talking directly about the German Navy because about a week or 2 weeks ago, one of these German ships that is deployed as part of Unifil destroyed a drone, shot down a drone that was heading towards Israel, right? So this is not the role that Unifil needs to be playing, as you're saying, right? They are supposed to be a buffer. They are supposed to help the Lebanese state protect its sovereignty. They're not supposed to be, fighting the war in the name of Israel, which seems to be really the case for a while now. That Unifil really just takes that position, which is, if Israel does something, we look the other way. Even, the attacks that have been happening, like the Israeli army has been attacking Unifil position. They have been injuring Unifil soldiers. The Israeli politicians have been calling for Irish peacekeepers to be wiped out. There's just this concerted effort that's coming from Israel, and Unifil is really, doesn't seem to concern itself too much with this situation. But on the other hand, whenever it has anything to do with the Lebanese resistance that is filling the hole that the Lebanese army should be the one filling, it's all hands on deck. We're going to shoot down drones. We're going to allow Israeli speedboats to land in the north of Lebanon. We really need to highlight this They landed way in the north of Lebanon, way far away from the combat zone, right, from the south. So exactly, Karim, as you're saying, who knows what else has happened? Who knows what else have they done? And this operation apparently only lasted about 4 minutes. They jammed the CCTV cameras around the building where this man was kidnapped, and they got in and out. They knew what they were doing. They knew where they were going. They knew that they were going to get away with it. The Israelis, I don't know if they've officially confirmed the operation. I know some Israeli media have talked about this being confirmed. The Israeli state, I think, is also keeping mum. Who knows if this man is still alive or if he's dead? So many questions left behind by such an event.
Just one thing, because you were talking about Unifil, I find it so funny, and it shows how delusional the Israeli is that we here in Lebanon always talk about how, the Unifil forces are spies and they protect Israel. And a lot of us even talk about the UN, that the UN protects Israel. Meanwhile, Israel has the complete opposite narrative that, and incites against the UN and attacks Unifil and claims that the UN is, works with Hamas and that the Unifil works for Hezbollah. So they have the complete opposite perspective that we have. Ours is that Unifil spies for Israel and obviously is not neutral. And meanwhile, Israel tries to claim Unifil was there all these years, watching Hezbollah dig tunnels, letting them, the Unifil forces even get paid by Hezbollah to stay quiet, and they work with Hezbollah. And it's like, well, over here we have the opposite has proven itself to be true to us. And also, I just wanted to read a little bit from the father of Ahmad Amhaz, who said, according to Lebanese media, that Ahmad is a Lebanese citizen who is fighting for his family and his sick parents, and everything that the Israeli occupation army is promoting is untrue. And this is according to Al Jadid. And the father also said, we hold the Israeli army responsible for his health and safety, and we demand his immediate release. And of course, he also held responsible Unifil, and is pointing the finger at Unifil and especially the German forces right now as directly responsible for the kidnapping, because these forces have been monitoring every single thing off the coast for years. This is reminiscent of other operations in the past. So again, it's not a surprise. We were talking about how in Baalbek in 2006, they did a landing operation and kidnapped a guy called Hassan Nasrallah, just because his name was Hassan Nasrallah. And it turned out he had nothing to do with Sayyid Hassan Nasrallah, but so they kidnapped him and then brought him back. And then another thing, just to, the other day, a couple days after the Batroun thing, the Israeli occupation army comes out and announces that it carried out an operation in Syria months back, right? Supposedly capturing a Syrian spy for Iran and therefore thwarting planned attacks against Israel. So they claim he was a terror network operative living in Daraa, and that they basically crossed the fence, like waltzed in and just took him, and that this prevented a future attack and I don't know what. Now, I don't know the extent of truth, but the point is this happened months back, supposedly, like in June or July. So, but psychologically, what is the significance of making it public just 2 days after the Batroun incident? It's to make a statement that, this is the stage we're at right now in the war, and we will do this whenever we want, so I felt like there was a message behind it, because this also kind of falls in line with the evacuation warnings that the Israeli occupation army has been issuing from the coast from Naura to Sur and Tyre, Sur is Tyre, and even banning fishermen from the sea. I don't know if you remember that, and issuing warnings to the Rashidi refugee camp in Tyre, which is also near the sea. So it's kind of like, prepping for this kind of, next phase where we might see a lot more of this. And it's a statement that, like, we control, we can come into your waters whenever we want.
Especially because our army has no equipment, and the government is very weak, and of course we don't have allies. And Lebanon, officially I can say, we have zero allies as a country. And we don't have a strong ally, like for any advanced, we don't have an advanced country as an ally. And usually small countries, they depend on these alliances, so they know what's happening, what the threats are for this country. Because we don't have radars, we don't have any monitoring system in Lebanon. And of course, there's no other country that will come to Lebanon, to the government, say, look, we care about you. Israel is trying to penetrate you from the sea. We will never know that, unfortunately.
Or even, exactly, or send the tools, as you're saying.
But Karim, how could you say we have no allies? America is our ally. America loves us. That's what Najib Mikati, the Prime Minister of Lebanon, said, that America wants to help us.
Saudi Arabia also is our ally.
Yeah.
Don't forget about France, guys. France loves
the mother.
So people maybe won't understand what we are saying. France first, they made like a conference to aid Lebanon, and they said they collected $800 million, but till now, or million euros, I forgot. But till now, we didn't see any penny of it. And of course, this money will go to the areas, or to the people, or to the parties that opposes Hezbollah, and they have no problem with Israel. That's how they consider us as an ally. So these countries, including France, which thinks that Lebanon is their baby because they used to occupy us till till the 40s, and of course the United States now is humping in, and Saudi Arabia and other Gulf states, because in their vision Hezbollah is very weak, and they are thinking about the following day after Hezbollah and after this war, and they want their allies to control Lebanon, as they did in 1982 when Ismail came into the power under the firepower of Israel, and he became president. And this is not so far from Lebanon. In the 80s, Israel elected, not the Lebanese, Israel elected the president of Lebanon. And they are trying to do that again. That's why we are seeing them now caring and talking about Lebanon, and even like the presidential candidates are mentioning Lebanon. This never happens. But because they see an opportunity, they see that Hezbollah now is weaker, and we can get our guys there. And of course, Saudi Arabia and other countries will push to normalize with the Israelis, and we will be under that treaty. That's what they are planning, and it's very clear. I'm not like making assumptions or analyzing. That's what the Saudis are saying very, very clearly on their news. And Saudi Arabia is a dictatorship, not like other dictatorship, as the people maybe say Putin is a dictatorship or whatever. No, Saudi Arabia is a proper dictatorship. No journalist or anchor can go to the TV and say anything without the acceptance, or if the government didn't tell him, or a friend of Mohammed bin Salman tell him to say so. That's what we are hearing on the Saudi TVs. And it's clear they are saying that's not their war. They are referring to Palestine. Palestine is not our cause. And Hezbollah is our enemy. And we have to think what we will do after Hezbollah wins this war. So that's what's happening.
Just to remind viewers, about Saudi Arabia's role in Lebanon. Remember that Saudi Arabia essentially sanctioned and blockaded Lebanon for several months because the tourist minister, some ministers said, that the war in Yemen was a bloody war, that it should stop. And then also remember when the Saudis essentially kidnapped the Lebanese Prime Minister Rafiq Hariri and forced him to resign live on air. So this is the allies that Lebanon has to rely on.
And I have to mention a very important point is that Palestinians that are with Hamas or that support Hamas and were living in Saudi Arabia, they are in jail in Saudi Arabia, and that's before October 7. That's happened when Mohammed bin Salman came into power. This happens between 2017 and 2019, and when the war erupted when Saudi Arabia waged a war against Yemen, and Yemen had some captives, and Saudi Arabia had some Yemeni captives. When they sat and talked to release these captives, the Yemenis, Ansar Allah, demanded the release of Hamas prisoners from the prisons of Saudi Arabia, and Saudi Arabia denied this. Until now, they didn't release anybody, although there are Saudis that are now captives in Yemen, and they said no, we don't want to exchange them with Palestinians. And that's insane. Till now, they are saying, till now they didn't accept.
Anyway, so these are Lebanon's allies. Any other allies we want to have, we're not allowed to have. I mean, I don't think anyone should be surprised by whoever violates our waterways, our waters at all. Because also, as you guys know, there are not... The planes landing in Beirut airport need the permission of Israel and the U.S. to land. And we saw Iraqi Airways wanted to give us aid, and they weren't allowed to land in Beirut airport. So we are heading towards a full naval and aerial siege, I think.
Exactly. I mean, just to clarify, this was a humanitarian air bridge that Baghdad wanted to set up between Lebanon and Iraq. And it was the U.S. embassy that stepped in and said, no, you cannot have that, because Lebanon can only do what it is told. And, before we move on to the next topic, I just want a couple of things. First of all, to your entire idea, Karim, of why, they are doing this type of operations. It's because they are, in the psychological warfare. This is the area where they are actually capable of obtaining some gains, because as we're seeing in the ground, they haven't achieved anything really, besides the destruction of many, many houses, many, many buildings, raising, the ground in the south of Lebanon. They haven't taken villages. They're actually pulling out. As we speak, saying that it's for a refresh or something like that. They're talking about a ceasefire is going to be achieved within a week, within 2 weeks. The Israeli army is essentially realized that what we already knew about the south of Lebanon, which is you're not gonna achieve anything on the ground operation, just like in Gaza, right? Besides widespread destruction, militarily, you're not really gonna achieve much. And one last thing is, as we're talking about the kidnappings, a few hours ago, there were reports in Lebanese media that another Lebanese citizen was kidnapped in the south, a 70-year-old woman, Gadiya al-Suwaid, from her home by Israeli troops. So, again, just complete impunity, just complete this open door policy for them. I guess if Hezbollah, the Lebanese resistance, weren't in the south of Lebanon, who knows? Who knows where the country would be at?
Yeah, 100%. It is, like you said, psychological warfare. There's a failure to establish or advance in South Lebanon. Like you said, there's basically ethnic cleansing being carried out in South Lebanon. The National News Agency said over 40,000 homes in 37 towns have been erased. And all of this is under the cover of what? Of self-defense, of protecting its border. And so that it can eventually bring the settlers back to the north. But this is ethnic cleansing to make it uninhabitable. Netanyahu said he was in the north, near the northern border, speaking the other day, and he said, we're going to push them back behind the Litani. And of course, we're going to cut Hezbollah off from Syria completely, and we're going to do this to return the settlers back and whatever. Now, some people say that he actually stepped back, that the goal 2-3 weeks ago was to again erase Hezbollah, and now they know they can't do that, so they're just talking again about the Litani. Anyway, this is ethnic cleansing happening in South Lebanon, and no achievements happening on the ground except destruction. And to excuse themselves, they say, oh, but it's a limited operation anyway, we don't want to go in, that's why we're not going in, because we don't want to. So of course it's not because they're not able to, it's because they're in total control, and they have taken the decision to just carry out limited cleansing of villages, as they call it. Yes, ethnic cleansing.
Indeed. So, as we're talking about Lebanon's lack of allies, on the other side, Israel seems to have all the allies, right? A pariah state committing a genocide, ethnic cleansing, not just in Gaza, as you're saying, Sima, but also in Lebanon. Its allies, you can count essentially the entirety of NATO, the entirety of G7, the entirety of the Arab monarchies that you were just discussing, Karim, including Egypt. And a video that made the rounds over the weekend that went viral, one video showing an Israeli warship crossing the Suez Canal, flying the Israeli flag, and then Egypt, a few days ago, allows the docking of the MV Katrin, a German-owned cargo ship carrying a 150-ton shipment of military-grade explosives for Israel to be used in Gaza, to be used in Lebanon. Egypt, an Arab nation, allows this ship to dock and unload its cargo to be delivered to Israel, while after other nations had already blocked it. So this is something we have sometimes touched upon, not so much in the podcast, and that is Egypt's role in what's happening in Gaza, in the actions of Israel against Gaza and against the Palestinians and the Lebanese, and essentially playing the role of a collaborator, right? This is the only way we can describe the Egyptian role, the Egyptian government's role, what's been happening.
Yeah, of course. The Egyptian role is a very old role since the 70s. And of course, Sisi's role, who's the president of Egypt, who was the best dictatorship for the Americans, according to Trump. This is not the first thing that he does like this. Previously, in 2014 and 15, when he came into power, the first decision he took is to destroy the border between Gaza and Egypt. He launched a bombing campaign that lasted for more than 1 year, and he said it. He said that we are destroying the tunnels between Gaza and Egypt, and he said he destroyed all the illegal passages between the two not entities, between Gaza Strip and between Egypt. And that was the first thing that he did when he took office. And of course, what we saw is expected. But the thing is that Sisi is not like Mohammed bin Zayed, the UAE leader, or Mohammed bin Salman, the Saudi Arabia's leader. These two, for instance, they can control their population because they are wealthy nations. But I can't understand how Sisi can take such decision, very clear decisions. The Suez Canal is a very narrow canal, okay? And there's people living there. And you can see the ships easily. You see an Israel destroying, passing very slowly. And thousands of people saw it, and there's the flag up there. And of course, the ship that docked with all the explosives, we heard the news, and like after 2-3 days, the pictures started to come up. To come out. This means that the ship stayed there, and they didn't even think of like moving the ship. Oh, I'm afraid of my people or whatever. So I think Egypt eventually will explode. He will have many problems internally because he doesn't have the economy to back him up. He can't say, okay, we want peace of Israel with Israel because we are a wealthy nation. That's what people tell us in the Arab world. And don't do anything to Israel because you don't want war because your economy is good. But Egypt in this case can't say so. And I think this is like a pure audacity from Sisi to allow such a thing. At least tell the Israelis, down your flag, pass and then put your flag back.
At the very least, indeed.
Yeah, no, I mean, look, it's not that we're shocked, but it's the fact that now explicitly Egypt has moved from indirect complicity to direct complicity, because previously we know who Egypt works for and what Egypt's role is in besieging Gaza, what Egypt's role is with the tunnels, as you mentioned, politically what Egypt's role is, many things. But now to see actually weapons, it's like moving. This is what Palestinians in Gaza have said on social media. We're now at the next stage. Like, we knew you were bad, but we didn't know that you were going to outright, facilitate killing us. I mean, not that by besieging Gaza, they're not doing that, but it's even more direct now. And so the ship of the MV Catherine, it's a 150 metric ton shipment of explosives. And it was for Elbit Systems, which is Israel's biggest defense contractor, and it docked in Alexandria Port. So you have these explosives in Alexandria Port, and you have the warship in the Suez Canal, and you have Egypt denying all of it. So Egypt and Jordan are just always denying, and you even have some Egyptians and Jordanians who are so brainwashed by their governments. They're like, we're the only ones helping Gaza. How can you say that? So anyway, Egypt denies, as always, even though it's for everyone to see, and this is, for many reasons, like the US is Egypt's patron, and the Egypt is Israel's sister, and also the Mossad has tons of dirt on his Egyptian officials, so even if they wanted to do something, they couldn't. So you're moving from indirect complicity to direct partner in the genocide.
I think it's direct from the beginning, because when Yemen front joined, I remember clearly that the Egyptian army, they said, now we are ready. Mm-hmm. And when the first missile or drone was fired from Yemen, Egypt was the first one to know and to say that we confronted this attack. Yeah. So I think it was directly involved in the military even operation from the beginning.
No, 100%. But I'm talking about perception. I'm talking about this is the most maybe blatant. I'm talking about audiences and masses around the world, and so the perception is moving from the indirect complicity to direct. But of course, they've been directly complicit from the start.
For instance, if they are like spies or if they are allies and they are like doing all this and lying to the people that no, we care about Gaza, I can understand the universe, but I can't understand how they allow a ship moving hundreds of kilometers in Suez
With the flag.
With the flag. I can't. It's illogical.
It's rude.
It's so rude that I can't comprehend.
So I want to highlight something, Karim, because you're completely right in what you're saying that Egypt, that Sisi in particular, might face issues. But I think this is why, for the past year, and especially right after, in the days after October 7, we started seeing Egypt's financial fortunes change, right? Like the IMF approving the loans that it had been seeking, like an $8 billion loan that is getting reviewed over the past couple of days. The IMF has been in Egypt reviewing, like for the next disbursement. They had donations, I guess, like a bunch of money flowing in from the US, from the EU, from Gulf nations. Remember that a few months ago, Saudi Arabia bought like a large chunk of real estate, if I'm not mistaken, near Alexandria, actually. So all of a sudden, you have everybody wants to give money to Egypt, right? To help, to allow. And when I mean everybody, I'm talking about US-based financial institutions like the IMF, like the World Bank, and Gulf nations, which are also, like they want Hamas to be destroyed. They want Israel to win this war. They have said it themselves. They said it. We discussed this last week about the quotes that Bob Woodward published in his new book. You also have the Yemeni attacks, right? They hit Egypt economically. They reduced the traffic from the Suez Canal, and at the same time, Egyptian ports. This was reported in August. They doubled Israeli imports since the start of the war. So you need to look at the entire picture, because Egypt is not doing this for free. The Egyptian government, because I'm sure Egyptian people, I would say a large majority of them would not stand with the decision, right, to support the ethnic cleansing of the Arab population of the region, because this is not just about the Palestinians, it's not just about the Lebanese, right? Because Israel has a expansionist project, right? Egypt is included. A large chunk of Egypt is included in the greater Israel map. So after they're done with Lebanon, and after they're done with Palestine, and after they're done with Syria, where are they going to turn to next, right? Who's going to be there to stop them anyway? So
I think if Sisi is there, and if, for instance, God forbid, Israel won, he will give him Sinai without fighting, and I don't think he will even fight, because it's clear what he's doing. And you said, yes, there is money flow, but we have to know where the money is going. First, Egypt is now a country with a population of over 105 million. I don't think any nation in the world can help Egypt, because the population and the land is very large. Yeah, you have 1.1 million kilometers squared also. And what Sisi did with the money is he made a new capital, which is the most stupid thing ever. You have a capital which is very old, and what you did is that you moved everything and you paid billions of dollars in the desert to make a new capital. Although the country is very poor and there is no infrastructure, currently their education system is one of the worst in the world, and he didn't put a penny in the infrastructure and in his education system, but he preferred to do a new palace for him. And he said it live on TV. He said, yeah, I am Abdel Fattah Sisi, and I am doing palaces, and this is for the country, as if the palaces are for the country, not for him, although nobody is allowed to go near any palace. So that's also a concern, not only for the Egyptians, but also for Arabs, because usually Egypt was the leader of Arabs. When Egypt is good, and when Egypt was producing, all the Arabs were producing, but now Egypt is dragging us as Arabs down more than ever.
I have a question. Isn't Egypt very reliant on Israel for electricity?
Not that, not so
It reduced its the imports, but it I mean I think
there's a deal between the two. Is that it's a very funny deal. You can look it up. You will see that this no longer exists. But according to my information, it still exists, or some part of this deal it still exists. The deal is that Egypt gives its that Egypt sells some of its gas to Israel. It's very cheap. They sell it cheaply. And then what Israel does is that Israel adds some chemicals to the gas, so it can be operated by factories, and then it sells it back to Egypt around double or triple the amount that Egypt gave to Israel. So it's very insane, as if I am giving Sima $1, okay, and she does something to this $1 and gives, and then I purchase it back from Sima by like $2 or $3, which is insane, which is what's happening also now regarding the Russia-Ukraine war. So
I remember a few months back there were some power cuts in Egypt, and there were some independent Egyptian reports saying that Israel might be behind the power cuts because the source was in.
I think this is all true. The point was that there was shortage in gas in Europe, and the Sisi preferred to give gas to Europe. He didn't give the Axis gas or the Axis power that they have. No, they prefer to give the gas to Europe. So that's what happened. So he's very patriotic, by the way.
Yeah, I mean, so there's the Egypt ally. And then, of course, I mean, we also, the Cradle reported this week the bomber aircraft and the Navy warships that were deployed to West Asia recently to strengthen the U.S. presence, to deter Iran, of course. And possibly Hezbollah. So yeah, I mean, the B-52 bombers, I mean, also, I mean, I have to mention that these either are arrived to Qatar or Bahrain. There's nowhere else they could arrive. So these are more of our complicit allies, you know, where that host these bombers. Now, there are, I think, now 6 B-52 bombers in the region.
That's what I was talking about. For instance, Qatar knows how to play the game.
And at least the PR.
And Saudi Arabia. But Egypt, if Suez was in Qatar will ask the Israelis, please remove the flag.
Right.
Says, Esteban, what's my phone? I told them, no, I can't give you your phone. But you asked me. I told you yes, but please don't show Esteban that I gave you the phone. This is the simplest way, you know. And there's another stupid thing before closing on Egypt. Egypt didn't complain or say anything regarding the blockage that Ansarullah did on the Red Sea. And as you said, they are affected economically, and we know Egypt is a very poor country. So the Suez Canal is very important for Egypt. It was very easy and very logical for Egypt to say, look, we will not allow Israeli ships to pass by, because Israel is a small country. And for instance, you have 100 ships passing through Suez, maybe 10% or less are going to Israel. But now many ships are not going there, and they are preferring to go all the way because they are afraid of Ansarullah. But if Egypt said, please, Israel, you can't pass from here, you're hurting us economically, despite what's happening in Gaza, Egypt won't have this problem. But they have this problem because they prefer the Israeli ships to pass by there rather than standing up for their country and saying, please, don't pass here. So it's illogical also. I told you I can't understand the universe, but not Egypt.
You know, one last thing about Egypt, actually, that I forgot to mention is I remember when Israel was about to launch the Rafah operation, right, the limited ground invasion in Rafah, and Egypt began constructing a buffer zone in the border with Gaza that they claimed were like roadworks, were like, like each of the 5 officials gave 5 different statements about what it was. What it actually was, just preparing. Because Israel has been talking from the beginning about pushing Palestinians in Gaza to the Sinai. And I would believe that plan might actually still remain on the table. Until now, the talk is about these, what they call them, Hamas-free bubbles, the gated communities that they're going to build in Gaza to keep Palestinians. And that actually brings us to the next topic, which is the situation in the north of Gaza, which we have been talking about for a few weeks now. Since the start of October, the ethnic cleansing campaign has intensified to a degree that, after the horrors that we have seen unfold in Gaza for the past year, you would think that at some point, we would run out of opportunities to say a new level of destruction, a new level of depravity. Israel keeps proving us wrong. On Monday, Kamal Adwan Hospital, one of the last functioning hospitals in the north of Gaza, the last hospital that was still able to somewhat cope with the amount of wounded and injured and death that have been, falling in the north of Gaza, is getting shelled to a new degree. The ICU destroyed, the pediatrics ward destroyed. A few days ago, they blew up one of the floors of one of the buildings that was holding oxygen tanks. As we have said it before, and we will continue to say it for as long as it needs to be said, what is happening in Gaza is nothing less than a Holocaust, is nothing less, than a live-streamed genocide. So Kamal Adwan Hospital on Monday makes a final distress call. This is what officials in the health ministry describe. They describe, medical staff is injured. There's attacks across the entire facility. And they close with this quote: "It appears that the decision has been made to execute all the staff who refuse to evacuate the hospital." Now, this is just another page in the horrific chapter that has been the Israeli ethnic cleansing campaign in Gaza.
Yeah, it's been over 30 days now that North Gaza is under full siege. And this is not also to leave out what's happening in central Gaza or southern Gaza. There are ongoing massacres in Beit Lahia, North Gaza, where Kamal Adwan Hospital is. Dr. Hussam Abu Safiya, who lost his son in this siege and killing spree, says that they're experiencing genocide in the hospital. I no longer have anything to say. I don't know what we can do except raise awareness on what's happening and point out who is complicit in this. Because this final distress call is, imagine what it means that anybody who is injured is automatically fated to die because there are no ambulances and no civil defense. Imagine directly bombing, directly targeting hospitals and directly targeting aid. And medical, aid sent by the World Health Organization, directly, targeting it. It's normalized now. It's normalized, and a lot of us can't stand that anymore. Hospitals are being bombed, and it's normalized. It's okay. It's just okay now, because it's gone on for so long that it's okay now, somehow. It's okay that there are no ambulances. Don't ask me how. I don't know what to say. Abducting medical staff, killing them, killing injured patients, attacking anybody who moves. They can't even leave if they want to step out of the hospital, they get killed. So
exactly, because they're talking about the staff and the patients who I guess refuse to evacuate. As doctors, right? You take a note. You take a note to protect people, to care for others. And in these hospitals, you have the wounded. We have seen for the past year all of the numbers coming out of Gaza. Gaza is the region in the world that has the largest number of child amputees in the world, right? So what you have is people literally being shredded to pieces in every single attack that Israel conducts with U.S. weapons, with the cover of the EU, with the cover of Arab nations like Egypt, like Jordan, like Saudi Arabia. And how are these people supposed to live, right? We have heard about the operations being done or the amputations being done without anesthesia. We have heard about, as you're saying, Sima, the kidnapping of medical staff. We have seen the images of patients and doctors being marched out at gunpoint from hospitals and being made to lie inside holes. Like the dehumanization is it's something that at this point, we are really running out of words. We are really running out of ways to convey what is happening, and that that it needs to stop. And there's nobody except for the resistance forces, for Hamas, for Hezbollah, for Ansar Allah to further away from the other two that have actually been trying to stop this. But these are the terrorists. These are the bad guys. These are the ones that are hurting commerce, that are hurting global trade, that are this and that. It's today as we are speaking, the U.S. population is heading to the polls to elect a president. Both candidates support what's happening in Gaza. Neither one of them is saying, I will stop sending bombs to Israel. Neither one of them is saying, I will make sure that there's accountability for the massacres and for the murders and for the attacks on hospitals. Neither one of them. They all talk, as you said, Sima, about Israel's right to self-defense. And all of these horrific things that we have seen are all under the umbrella of self-defense. And, the north of Gaza, as we're saying, is being ethnically cleansed. That is the plan. That is the general's plan. That is the idea. And that has been the idea from October 7, right? They're all human animals. Remember what Amalek did to you. Do the same to them and their children. They have said it from day one, and we're seeing it unfold in front of our very eyes. And the international organizations are nowhere to be found. We are still waiting. It's November now for the ICC arrest warrants, which also, right, the arrest warrants, they were not just for Israeli officials. They were not just, against Netanyahu and Yoav Gallant. They were also against Hamas leaders, which I believe actually the ones named have already been killed. So maybe this is what has the ICC concerned, that all of a sudden they can't say, it's Israel and Hamas, because Israel ended up killing everyone that they could name from Hamas. And the UN, right? The UN is like, might as well just be painted on the wall, might just be a painting in the wall, because there's absolutely nothing. Same for the ICJ. Same for all of these, And, this is not to sound defeatist. It is simply what we have been shown. This is what we have been told. We are being told, Palestinians' lives don't matter. Lebanese lives don't matter. And the question here is then who's next and whose lives matter? Only the settlers, only the Europeans, only the Ukrainians, right? The refugees with the blonde hair and the blue eyes.
Oh, and there's the Eastern Jews in Israel who matter more than we do, and they're brown, they're not white. So, it just depends on, it's just a supremacy, if you like. It's just a colonialist. So also, I think we also covered this, but like a couple of days ago, the Yediot Aronot said that Israeli military officials now claim that it will take at least 6 more months to clear northern Gaza of Hamas. Of course, they need to clear northern Gaza of any life. Because ideally, yes, they want to establish Jewish settlements in Gaza. But anyway, so they're claiming that it's going to take at least 6 more months. And what they're doing is forcibly displacing the entire civilian population. And they cut off Jabalia from Gaza City and then carried out this whole siege. So now we have to face this for months more to come while they tell the world that we're detaining suspected Hamas terrorists. And look at all the progress we've done. And you have a lot of Israeli influencers saying, imagine if we had listened to the Americans and not gone into Rafah. Look how much we've achieved. It's like as if the Americans ever even actually told you not to go into Rafah. Like, who are you kidding? But so all these mass detentions, these mass killings, and now they're saying it will go on for at least another 6 months. And that's just the north. We're talking about the north.
Yeah. And the narrative also, they always, whatever they do, they say, there was a Hamas operative there, or even in Lebanon, that's Hezbollah as the one who kidnapped. Even though if he's with Hezbollah or without Hezbollah, they don't have the right to do that.
Exactly. This is something, very important. It doesn't matter. It's none of your business. Let's say Ahmad Amhaz, who was kidnapped from Batun, was Hezbollah. Does that give you a right to violate our territory? He's a citizen, isn't he? Isn't he a Lebanese citizen?
The question always has to be, what if this had happened in Israel? What if this had happened in the U.S.? What if this had happened anywhere, where I guess the rule of law matters to some? And one last thing before we finish for this week on the topic of Palestine is the situation in the West Bank, where on Monday we saw several villages, several towns be attacked by rampaging Israeli settlers, numerous pogroms being conducted, houses, cars, agricultural fields being razed, being set on fire. And now we are hearing about settler groups in the West Bank that have acquired hundreds of high-caliber rifles to prepare for war. Then, again, this is not new. This has been happening. This was happening even before October 7th. The militarization of the settlers in the West Bank, the land theft that has been happening for decades at this point. But now it really is in overdrive, right? And because the focus is so, deservedly, right, placed on Gaza and on the situation in Lebanon, the situation in the West Bank is kind of going a bit unnoticed. If it wasn't for outlets like the Cradle or, many others that do similar work as us, this would be happening in complete silence.
Yeah, this is just an escalation of the silent war on the West Bank, which is also similar to Gaza, Lebanon. The aim is to make it unlivable and to eventually absorb the land and take it all. Because I just wanted to point out that, the West Bank is governed by the PA. Although I may hate the PA, but in fact, Israel hates both the PA and Hamas. I mean, Israel uses the PA as its arm to maintain its occupation, but it doesn't like the PA. And it would, if they could get rid of the PA to completely annex the West Bank, then it would do that. And, we have the burning of all these agricultural lands and these olive trees and the setting on fire of cars and homes everywhere. Towns and villages in Ramallah and Al-Bire and Nablus and Jenin Governorate and Ariha, which is Jericho, and the list goes on. And this is aside from the military raids that are ongoing where they destroy the infrastructure in the refugee camps. So we're talking about that since 7 October, actually. There are more than 14,000 trees, mostly olive trees, that have been uprooted, destroyed, or damaged. And settler attacks have almost doubled since 7 October, actually. This is, according to UN monitoring group OCHA, they say 59 incidents only in 2022 and 36 in 2021, and now it's doubled and tripled. I mean, this is, like you said about the arms, these settler councils and these groups, they are arming because now they want to shift to a military strategy as opposed to, terrorizing settlers, like it's taking the terrorizing to a next level. So it becomes it goes from terrorism and pogroms to straight up military attack, maybe. I mean, and we don't know exactly what the timeline of this is going to be, but we know how in danger West Bank Palestinians are, and everyone actually knows that if the resistance loses in Gaza, that Israel is coming for them next. So Gaza is kind of like if it falls, then they Palestinians in the West Bank feel like they will be expelled to Jordan. I mean, it's coming, and depends on how this can be, because no one's going to stop it. Not anyone can come and tell me that somebody's going to stop this after everything we've seen this past year. And so this is in the West Bank. It shouldn't be overlooked. It shouldn't be ignored. It is happening on a daily basis. Again, homes, cars, agricultural lands, making it like how they burn the lands in Gaza and in South Lebanon. They are burning the lands in the West Bank because they don't
arbitrary detentions as well. Thousands have been detained, including children.
Of course, the detentions are and the abuse in the prisons, of course. But I'm saying just the idea of destroying the land and also not letting them go back into their own lands or into their own houses. This is all on the rise now.
Yeah, we have to mention that everything that's happening in the West Bank is under the supervision of the Israeli army. And what's happening is that there are many groups. You can donate to these groups, and the Westerners donate to these groups. These groups are operating in the West Bank. You have a head of the group who collects money and buys weapons and give it to the locals. And then the locals gather themselves without paying any penny, and even the bullets, they didn't even pay for the bullets. They gather themselves, they tell the army, we want to storm this village, for instance, in the West Bank. They gather themselves. The Israeli army stays like somehow far away from them, protecting them from any armed groups or from anybody who wants to fight them. And then they do whatever they want. They burn the buildings, they burn the street, they burn the cars, and they have fun, and there's videos of them doing whatever they want. And even the Israelis love this, military and locals. They strip people from their clothes, and they blindfold them, and they take pictures, burn everything, and go back to their houses. It's maybe people in other places, they go to the cinemas or play football, but in the West Bank, that's what the Israelis are doing.
Of course, it's all under the protection of the Israeli occupation forces and under the approval of the Israeli government. But some liberal Zionists like to make an excuse that these settlers' actions are separate from the government and it's out of their control. This is all systematic. There is no separation between them. Don't let anybody tell you that, even though you will see in the US media that there's a separation between them and that these are fringe elements.
Apparently the entire settler community is fringe.
Apparently, yes.
To Israel. And with that, we can end for this week. Thank you all so much for joining us. And again, a reminder to like, to share, to subscribe, to follow us on X, on Telegram, and to find us on the Instagram as well. And please check out our Patreon page where you can support the Cradle and all the work that we do. For the Cradle News Roundup, my name is Esteban Carrillo. I have been joined by Karim Shami and Sima Itaim.